75% of attendees that go to a show have a list of who they're going to see. Chances are you're not on it. It's not enough to just buy a pretty booth. You've got to be able to engage, qualify, present, and close. And close doesn't mean get a deal. Close means close on a commitment.
I think reframing it from being a trade show booth to a branch office, I'm going to invest a little bit more energy, but also money into the experience.
Don't just design it so it looks cool. It gets harder to get in front of our clients and our prospects now, but shows are a great place to do that.
Strong companies, lasting partnerships, powerful events. Welcome to the Experience Builders Podcast.
Chris, a little different setup today. I love the poster on the wall.
Well, the trappings of success meant that the planned office furniture upgrade happened. So it's nice to come into a place and you feel like, you're in a new place. So same office, just.
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of changing offices right now. So I'm actually in the nursery for the next 3-4 weeks maybe. But yeah, it's fun. And it makes me think about being in the nursery, how much it's not very conducive to work, which really fits nicely into our topic.
I see what you're doing there, right? The branch office.
The nursery is not the branch office. This isn't where I want to welcome people.
That's right.
Unless they're under 2.
There was a time I remember when I was starting my company, my oldest, who's 24 now, was, napping. And so I had one bedroom. I had a production artist and a designer in there. Our loft, I had 3 of us, had workstations in there. The baby, Delaney, was in her room. And you were not allowed to be on the phone call times between the hours of, 1 and 2:30 because that was nap time. So I knew it was time to change offices when I had approached my wife and said, hey, do you mind if I put a workstation in the master bedroom? Because technically no one's in there during the day. And she said, it's time to get out. It's time to go find an office, a real office. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm reminded of what we're going to talk about today. And that's really what it's like to open up a branch office.
Yeah, so maybe share with us a little bit about the backstory of this branch office concept, because I think for most people that are going to a trade show and they're going to be exhibiting, they're thinking, I just need a booth. But
right,
where did this come up with?
I think that's a great point. So many people that we sit with, even the ones that are smart and strategic, Khalil, that know, I'm going to have to do some marketing beforehand, and but everybody loves to dive into the booth part. And they're really, gosh, how do I, people are always, well, my budget is this. And they think all of that money is going to that visual exhibit, that backdrop that's going to, be cool and fun to work on. And they just were blown away by a lot. I'm sure listeners right now, blown away by what to be a lot of those behind the scenes costs of participating in trade shows. So, moving into that first office, it reminded me, you don't just get a booth when you're going to show. You really are opening up a branch office for 3 or 4 days. If you're going to the National Association of Broadcasters show or the CES show or the PGA Golf Merchandising show or whatever your industry shows are, you're opening up a branch office for 3 days. And just like a real office, you have to think about all the things like, what show am I going to go to? What is the audience? What's the location, right? If I were offering you an office somewhere in Dallas, Texas, based on your product and services, would you want to be in the manufacturing area of the city? Do you want to be in the high tech area? If it's an educational product, is there sort of an academic and educational area? Is there a medical city kind of an area? And we all know what that looks like in the towns we live in, and often shows are like that. So you think about what show with the right audience am I going to be? And then what size office do I need? What's the space selection? Where do I put it? And how much do I need? We know a 10 by 10 is 100 square feet, and that feels tiny. on the show floor with in that mall of business activity that's going on for 3 days. So, I love the analogy, Khalil, because if I'm giving you that office and you look at the brand new shell of a building and it's bare concrete, which is exactly what a convention floor is before you
Yeah.
get there, you have to think about, what are my electrical requirements? What are my internet? Are there hard Cat 5 lines that I need? How about phone? Or do I need charging stations for the cell phones, either for my visitors or for us? What about do I need a place to greet people? Do I need conversation area? Do I need private conversation area? Am I going to be telling my story by demonstrating product? Do I need kind of a showroomy product showcase area? Am I just going to be educating the public about something? How do I move traffic through the office? So I think if an exhibitor can think like that, you're going to be reminded exactly what you have to be thinking about budget for in a lot of logistics.
Well, and I love what you've told me this many times, but a lot of people think they're just going to get a booth for a show.
Yeah,
But what's the whole objective of going to the conference in the first place? It has to be at the forefront, at the heart of it, right?
yeah. Almost 85% of people that participate as exhibitors at shows say the reason they go is to get qualified leads. Everybody says, well, not everybody, but so many people go, well, we're there to make sales. Do you actually make sales in the booth? Do you get checks and write orders? And there are some shows that dealers will come to the big industry show and they will place orders for the year or for the quarter. And you know what? That's a fun thing to do. And it changes the design of the office because we might need closing tables or closing rooms. But for the most of us, we don't get to do that. What we're really trying to do is get 6 or 8 pieces of information in that 3 to 10 minute window that we're going to be able to use to follow up and follow through in a way that accelerates the sales cycle for us. And when done correctly, poll results have shown, Khalil, when done correctly, it is the most cost-effective way to market your products or services. The average qualified trade show lead, not business card, right? That's a contact. That's not a lead. The average qualified lead takes less than 1 sales call after a show to close on a commitment to do business together. I think the average cold calling, and I'm not even sure if that's it. I don't have a recent statistic, but the last one I heard was 4.1 sales calls in order to get a deal closed versus less than 1 with a qualified trade show lead. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure you're in front of the right audience, and that's where you choose the right show. We want to make sure you're in a good location, so you're going to be seen. By the way, I am not a fan. Are you just going to rely? So I'm giving you that office in Dallas, Khalil. Can you survive off of drive-by business? Or do you have to let people know you're there? So I know in my business, I've been in locations where we're in a manufacturing area and it's not drive-by. I've been on a main road with 25,000 cars a day. And when the company name was up there, it had the word exhibit in it. People would literally walk in during show season. And one of my offices is just a mile from the convention center in Orlando, Florida. Right. So there's always people that were popping in. And unfortunately, it wasn't the kind of work we typically wanted when they go, hey, we need some grid wall. Well, those are $35 a sheet for a 2x8 sheet. Why so expensive? And you go, okay. You go, oh.
This is the talent show at school that you're.
But I think it's cool to jump in on the design and the building of the thing that's going to make your company look great. But you also have to think about, the ground preparation and the staffing and how many we'll have and where do people sit and coats and purses being stored and do we have giveaway items? Anyway, all that good stuff.
Yeah, let's walk through that. So we understand that, the whole purpose of being at the show is to create new opportunities, generate new business for us.
Yeah.
And we want to have a welcoming environment, not just a graphic with people standing in front of it, but a place where we can have discussions, where we can do demonstrations, where, we can have seating areas and the ability to get onto our laptops and all those kinds of things, just like a branch office.
Right.
What goes into that? What are the things that people overlook when they're thinking about their branch office?
I think the first thing is they're unrealistic about how much they can accomplish in limited space.
Okay.
So, you and I in the last conversation we had, you said, very often you'll take a 100 square feet, a 10 foot by 10 foot space. And you mentioned that you needed a table for product, right? And that you very often they're going to include a 6 or an 8 foot draped. I call them barricades because most people put them out front, right? And you don't want to be doing that, but it's going to take up, it's 3 feet by 8 feet. That's 24 feet of your 100 square feet. It's going to be used on that folding table. You mentioned that you have 3 people, okay, and they're going to be in there. Your backdrop's going to take up maybe 2 to 3 feet of depth and 10 feet wide. So that's not really usable space. So you've got somewhere between, 20 and 30 feet there. And we talked about that surveys have shown the typical attendee needs 50 square feet of space to feel comfortable coming in and talking to a stranger, right? And so if you're trying to tell your whole company story and all the products and services in that small a space, it's very difficult. I would say it's impossible to. Well, let me ask you a question, Khalil. What's the biggest mall you've ever been to?
Probably the Dubai Mall, I think.
I've seen that. That's huge.
It's pretty.
See pictures
It's
of it.
pretty massive.
But I remember the first time I went to the Mall of America in Minneapolis.
Okay, is that the biggest in the world?
It was for a while. It was certainly the biggest in North America. I don't know that it is anymore. But I mean, there's an amusement park in the middle of the mall, and there's just I look at malls very, very similar to trade shows, right? I know where Macy's is, and I know where in Florida there's one called Bell's. I know where Lord and Taylor. I know where Nordstrom's are. In a few words, those are the big island booth exhibitors, right? Those are the easy guys to find at the show. But remember Spencer Gifts or a Hallmark store? Those smaller, there's 800 stores in a mall, and those are the little 10 by 10 exhibitors. And even with a directory, I can't find those guys when I'm looking for them. So just imagine the challenge. So I think one of the things, the first thing is people neglect to realize, I know it's not an inexpensive proposition for those big national shows that draw 50, 60, 80,000 people. But I'd love to see you do fewer shows, maybe in a 200 square foot space. I'd look for locations. There's all kinds of statistics out, but I want to say that in the U.S., 90% of attendees that go to a show walk in the front door and they turn right, and
not left, right.
So I took a course on this once, and they equated the trade show floor very much to a chessboard or a checkerboard. And when you play that game, where is the most activity on the board? Well, it's in that center block of squares. It was where most of the crisscrossing happens. And sure enough, if you go to a trade show, that's where the big industry leaders have their booth. The main aisles, the north, south, and the east, west aisles, as they go through, you'll get the ones that are right up there in Murderer's Row, right? There's people that go, got to be right by the front door. But my experience is I go in the front door and I immediately walk 100 feet and I turn, and then I'll get my bearings and I'll look at my map or my list. 75% of attendees that go to a show have a list of who they're going to see before they go to the show. Chances are you're not on it, right? So when you are building your branch office, it really, this is a strong argument for some sort of pre-show communication and promotion. It's, your customers or prospects are going to be there, or you have the opportunity to buy the show list for a marketing campaign. Target and talk to the people you want to talk to and drive them to your booth. Give them a reason to come there. We have our CEO who's going to be doing a Q&A from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Tuesday. We're doing a happy hour from the last hour of the show on day one from 3 to 4 in booth 5471. or we have a celebrity that's going to be in there taking pictures and signing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But create an event in that branch office and then drive people to that. So, like I said, it's not enough to just buy a pretty booth or rent something. There's got to be a strategy and then a tactical plan to drive that traffic there. And again, when done correctly, we're doing all these things. You are, it is the most affordable way to market your products or services.
So a question I have for you, I'm getting this branch office in Dallas, like you said, never been to never been to the convention center that's there. Um, how do I know how to get there? Is this something that you're helping with, Chris? Like, what's the best way to approach this? Do I need to go onto the show's website or convention center's website, look at the map, choose the aisle, or how do I
No,
approach
that's
that?
great. So if you're signing up and you already signed up as an exhibitor, you're going to get a show kit. They used to just be big, thick 3-ring binders, and they still exist in print, but most of them are digital. So you can, and literally you could go online right now. And if your show kit, let's say you're going to a show that's going to be in November, the SEMA show, the Aftermarkets Auto Show, and maybe the show kit's not out yet, you can pull up last year's. It's going to be very, very similar. So they will have digital floor plans and you can see who's where. In a show that size, you're going to have sectors of so there's new cars, there's
Yeah.
there's parts, there's engine parts, there's accessories, there's all kinds of stuff like that. I know we just had the sports hunting and outdoor trade show, which is a lot of the um, guns and ammunition. There's a law enforcement hall. There's hunters. There's sportsmen, right? There's military. So they branch them up. So and sometimes the larger shows, depending on who your ideal customer is, your target audience is, they will break that up for you. Maybe you're a smaller exhibit. I know when we were starting off and I didn't have the money to be competing with the Nordstroms and the Macy's size
Sure.
island booth exhibitors, I might try and get a 10-footer as close as I can to them. Or if I have a competitor that's just way bigger than me, can I get something across the aisle from them? I employed the strategy of mother fish, feeder fish, right? And could I surf off of their whatever marketing they did or their brand recognition? It's going to bring in the same kind of people. But again, keep in mind, unless you've got a kick-ass, compelling, graphic image or something that's really drawing people in, maybe it's a cool LED wall that's, looks like it's waterfalls or something cool. The burden can ultimately end up on your staff to get people stopped and talking. And
What are the strategies for that? How does
so
that
I can't
work?
say enough about that. Here's a sobering statistic. 6 months after the trade show is over, 80% of what that visitor remembers about your company is not your booth. It's not your graphic. It's not the stuffed animal giveaway you gave them. 80% of what they remember is that brief 3 to 5 minute encounter with you, with your staff. So let me ask you, Khalil, do you spend 80% of your training or your budget on training? Do you spend 10% of your show budget on training your staff? How about 5%? To behave in this unique and natural environment. You and I were talking before the show started about, if we're sales guys, right? And you're going to go out prospecting. I could see between 2 and 4 people in a day. That's a busy day for me. So if I'm going to be in Chicago and I want to drop in some customers, I might be able to see 1 or 2 in the morning, 1 or 2 in the afternoon. But if I told you that tomorrow you're going to do 200 3-minute presentations, pretty much all the same, one right after another, how does your behavior change? How do you bet you're gonna, I know you'll be briefer, right?
Yeah.
But have you already thought out about the 6 or 8 key questions you're trying to get answers to capture? Do you have a plan and a device to capture that? It's great stuff. Man, I always give these guys a shout out because it's such a cool product. We had these guys on the show a while back.
Oh yeah,
but
Jordan.
yeah, Backtrack, right? It's an AI driven
Yeah.
software where it basically activates your phone into recording device, and their software reverse engineers it into a lead format. So when you activate, hey, this looks like it's going to be a meaningful conversation. And by the way, it used to be, well, can you record people? Have you seen TikTok? Everybody's recording everybody, man. I don't think people are offended by it anymore. But
Yeah.
it's a great way to make sure you're capturing. I know the shows usually will provide some sort of a lead retrieval or lead capture device, but again, maybe it's a good one. A lot of them, the good ones, you can program with your own questions on there, but you got to train your staff on how to use that. Remember, it's
Yeah.
not enough. You've got to be able to engage, qualify, present, and close. And close doesn't mean get a deal. Close means close on a commitment to take the next step after the show.
Yeah.
And then release and get on to the next one, because it's a volume game when you're on a show floor.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this last time, but having that meeting space inside the booth can really be conducive for that. Like, hey, you have that first conversation with someone kind of at the entrance of the booth.
Yeah.
Man, I would love to sit down. Do you have 3 minutes? Let's sit down and talk over here. And then that initiates essentially that qualification of, hey, let's gather the 6 to 8
So I think
pieces of information.
I think the well-trained staffers, Khalil, can anticipate that's going to happen. So if this is my personal opinion, take it or leave it, but if you're getting the 6 or 8 foot draped table, get rid of it. Put it in the aisle during setup day. Seriously, have them take it away. Don't create the barrier, right? You'll have your own lead station or podium. It might be 1 meter wide. There's a lockable storage inside. Maybe there's a little bit of power. So, I've been to great places where somebody just puts, those phone chargers that have like the 6 different kinds of cords. So you want to, when I see you get your phone in your hand, you want to charge it for a few minutes? They say, and then they just come in. Classic Exhibits. Shout out to the guys at Classic. They have an entire product line of really cool, sexy charging station tables of all different shapes and sizes. So imagine the coffee table that you come in and sit down next to the left seat. You get to charge your phone for 20 minutes. And now, well-trained staffers are going to maximize that time.
Right.
So what are you looking for at the show? Are you familiar with what we do? I know that seems like it might be awkward to say, but remember, Khalil, these attendees, they're in a different mindset than when, you and I cold call them in the middle of the day with an interruption. They call that ambush marketing, right? Well, these guys have traveled a great distance to come see you, to come to the show and talk and learn about what's there. So I think they're in a better mindset. So they're expecting to be engaged in conversation.
Who is the best staff to have inside the booth during the show? Like, I think about, if we got an account executive, that might not be the best person to have in the booth because their time is super valuable. They should be having meetings around the trade show.
So
who's the best?
Well, so it really depends on you, your goals for the show, and the audience that's expected. So for example, you're going to a manufacturing show and it's going to be a lot of plant managers and engineering people who are making the investment in that $250,000 machine. You're going to need some technical people, right? That are going to be able to talk knowledgeably about that. And by the way, how good do you think at engaging strangers technical people are or engineers are?
Fantastic. They're ready to talk.
Yeah, right. What is that joke about? You can always tell an outgoing engineer, he's the one staring at your shoes when he's talking to you, not his own. Right?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. No, but they're going to need some help from you, coaching about, and by the way, don't try to make them into something they're not. So if they're great at presenting all the features and answering questions that are technical about the product, you want them inside near that machine. But in other words, we need the proactive, outgoing, personable people on the edge of the booth. You hook them and he'll clean them and fry them, to use a fisherman's term. But in the end, I would have a different strategy for getting people stopped and talking. Now, if there's if a gorgeous backdrop, a compelling mural, I know I worked for an exhibit manufacturer early on in my career, and their signature image was, this giant face on a 10-foot or sometimes on a 16-foot tower of a beautiful girl, with kind of a Hawaiian lei headgear. Her eyes were two different colors, and they did that to show how they could manipulate your photo image to look better than anything that could be taken with a camera. But it was a beautiful person that you go, wow, what's going on over there? And then that was enough that the visitors got close enough. People would step in and say, hey, how much do you know about, blah, blah, blah company. So I think there has to be a strategy. If the booth's job is to be a visual speed bump on that main aisle to just slow people down, you've got to know how to step in. And, sir, do you want to register? Yeah, we're giving away $100 Amazon gift cards every hour here. You got a minute to just, it's 3 questions and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Or whatever your strategy. That's part where you come in. So your question was, who's the best one? I think sometimes for engaging, it's the proactive type A personality salesperson or a great client-facing customer service person. Sometimes it requires technical discussions, and you're going to need to bring more than just salespeople. It's got to be something more technical. So I would also suggest, Khalil, if you're going to have any kind of AV presentation going, make sure someone on the staff knows how to troubleshoot AV, because Murphy's Law is alive and well.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Or just have a really great partner who can be there in a flash, like Crew XP maybe.
Hey.
So another thing I thought about is, it's not just about new opportunities, but it's about opportunities to connect with existing clients who are just, you never see in person potentially.
Yes.
And so might be a good thing to have some account managers have scheduled time to be by the booth so that people can, hey, I'm going to be at the booth from 3 to 5 on whatever day. Come, I'd love to see you or whatever.
This is what a successful exhibitor looks like in today's day and age, right? Nobody's mailing it in and just showing up and hoping for the best anymore. So 3 months before the show, you're talking to your customers and you're going to find out who's going to the big industry show, right? Yeah. Are you going to be there? Well, let's plan some time. By the way, we're doing kind of a VIP happy hour at the restaurant right across the street from the venue or in the Anchor Hotel. Come by from 6 to 7, say hi. If you come by the booth, this is a very effective tactic. Come by the booth at some point on day one if you want to come. I can give you, we're not promoting it because it's limited seating, but I'll give you a little piece that'll get you in the door and you can bring a guest with you. So
nice.
You go, oh, that's great. So that's one. Second is, let's plan on hooking up for lunch. They got me on booth duty. I'm working from noon to 4 on every afternoon, but I'd love to either meet you for happy hour or maybe we can grab a coffee in the morning. Or I'd love to walk the show floor with you for half an hour. So,
yeah.
I love the idea. Like, make sure you're going to see your best customers. The next thing is, if there's prospects, there's people you've tried to call on and connect with and just haven't been able to. If they're going to be there, man, there's nothing like getting in person with those people. It gets harder to get in front of our clients and our prospects now, but shows are a great place to do that. So I'd recommend it. And there's all kinds, again, the big shows, there's always, I don't want to say parties, but there's always kind of VIP happy hour things going on. And if you can score that information and you get to take a client, trust me, they take your call every time after the show because now you've made that connection.
Yeah. So how can we budget for, I think, reframing it from being, a trade show booth to a branch office, I'm going to invest a little bit more energy, but also money into the experience. Well, how can you start budgeting this versus a booth, right?
Well, that's a great question. So remember I said, if you don't have a historic budget from past shows that you know what you spend and you go, okay, well, we know there's going to be, I was just on a webinar this morning by the Exhibitor Advocate, which is a great no cost to join. Any exhibitor can go to theexhibitoradvocate.com and sign up. But they have 750 exhibitors that are members, and they're they're sharing ideas and talking about things. But I was just on one of their webinars this morning. Electrical costs on average, they're all sharing their data, have gone up 16% this year. So, you're looking at least a 16% increase of whatever you paid last year. Anyway, they have some great data and reports that you can access.
Is that just electric from the trade show to like have access to it, or is that the
That's
install,
from the
or is it
convention
both?
center running it to your booth. So
Okay.
if you're just running a drop in the back and you're paying $200 for that, you're going to pay $232. It's jumping 16%. If you're an island booth and you're spending $3,500 for your electrical drops, it's jumping 16% also.
Yeah.
Internet has gone up. Material handling has gone up. Flooring has gone up. So, like I said, when we talk, Khalil, I think it's a trade show manager is going to be thinking about the cost of my space and the cost of my hotel rooms and flights for my people. For you and I, for this conversation, we're really just talking about the branch office. You've paid for the real estate. So it's going to be your flooring, and it's going to be your backdrop, and that's going to include your furniture for sitting and conversation areas. And it's going to include the walls that give you a little bit of storage and an AV monitor or two, right? So all of that stuff is going to be included, and then the labor to set it up and then properly dismantle it and repack all that. So just all that stuff, and probably if you're renting and it's a local exhibit house you're working with, you can expect to spend, I think we said in our last call, about $150 per square foot is the average cost. There's people that'll spend twice as much as that for a really dynamic thing. Maybe it's tricked out with LED screens and it's full motion, what we call live graphics. There's people that will figure out how to do that more on a shoestring budget. But keep in mind, think about walking the Mall of America or that biggest mall. As you're just walking the aisles, what are the stores you're drawn to? Right?
Yeah.
What are the things you see? It's not the ones that are overstimulated and cluttered. It's a great exercise. By the way, if you're looking to design your exhibit, I think malls and retail stores are great places to go and get ideas. Walk through IKEA and just look at how they've done space planning and all those little alcove rooms. Look at the colors. Look at the cool shapes of lighting, right? If I really need 17 to 20 minutes with a prospect for us to tell our story, then you've got to create an environment that people are going to be comfortable spending 15 or 20 minutes. You can't expect they're going to give you that standing on the edge of your booth space because it's too crowded to come in. When just the natural energy of traffic moving in the aisle is pulling them, they're 50% distracted already by it. Got to get them to step in. And that's why I'm a fan I'd rather see you do fewer shows with a little bit bigger space that gives you an opportunity to control their attention and have a clear objectives about what you want to accomplish. I'm fundraising, and I'm here to educate the public about my cause. I am an enterprise software product, and it's 9 months typical cycle for us to make a sale. And I need a great first encounter so I can begin to tickle and target them after the fact and maybe get a meeting to come in and see them for an hour outside the booth. But I've got to get noticed and be remembered. You do that, talk to them first, let them know you're going to be there, give them a reason to come see you, have a great encounter in the booth. Within 7 days, follow up, and don't just follow up, follow through. I learned that in golf. You don't follow up, follow through, right? You follow through on whatever commitment you made. The average trade show lead, Khalil, cools off by 50% 7 days after the show ends.
Wow.
So
It's timely.
You staffers, if you're listening, right, or if you're in charge of the staff, remember, whoever you're taking to the show, make sure they're leaving 2 or 3 days when they get back for serious follow-up on show duties. Because what happens if you take a salesperson to the show and he's out of the office for 5 days, he gets back and he gets so caught up in getting caught up. Those action item leads sit there, and it's the end of the week, and he's not as excited, and they aren't either. So you really want to make sure that you're already planning to follow through your first 2 days back.
Yeah. No, it's really, really great to think about this branch office and think about how to welcome people and how to make the most out of this event rather than just seeing it as, yeah, we're going to be there. No, like this is an extension of our company. We need to staff it the right way. We need to prepare it the right way. And we need to use this opportunity to close a deal essentially by the end of it. So,
Khalil, again, the branch office philosophy. You go to your office, not the one under the same
not this
roof,
current one,
not the current one, not your transition office. But
yes.
if you're going, when I come to my office, I'm walking in with a laptop bag. I'm bringing my lunch or a snack or something that I'm eating that day. I usually have a coffee or a drink. Okay. And so you're in a 10 by 20 space, and there's going to be 2 or 3 of you on the morning shift or 2 or 3 of you on the afternoon shift. And if it's winter, I got a coat. Where is all this stuff going when you show up at your branch office at New York's Javits Center or at the Moscone Center in San Francisco? Have you planned for storage? It can't all fit in the lead station table out front and the little cabinet down below, right? So that's why I really do recommend, and there's something inviting about a clean, open, attractive branch office to walk into. But when I see stuff laying around or leaning up against the tower or leaning against the table, it's just got to get out of sight. So there's got to be some kind of a storage closet in preparation.
Yeah, this is the same reason you don't hire, or you don't, I think I said this last time, you don't remodel the bathroom yourself. You don't build the branch office yourself either. You find someone that can support you and guide you to make sure that way you can focus on the other stuff. I mean, you've already talked about training your staff on how to execute these
it's
meetings.
It's true.
3 minutes. Yeah.
You and I are going to be having conversations about some of these topics, setting clear goals and objectives, right? We'll talk about that. We could have a whole discussion just about selecting the right show and space. Realistic budgeting, we've talked a lot about today, which is great, and designing the environment with purpose. Don't just design it so it looks cool. What's the booth's job, right? And design with that in mind to support what the staff is doing. Selecting and preparing the staff, right? That is not an accident. That's got to be intentional. We don't want to just generate leads. We want to manage them successfully after the show. So what's our strategy? What's our software? What's the key information we're getting? And then ultimately 6 months after the show's over, how do we decide if it was a successful show? What are we going to measure by? Is it sales? Is it leads? Is it number of customers that we got? But I'm telling you today, the space planning, how much room, just like an office, signage, what are the aesthetics of the design? Do I need a reception area? Do we need to meet with people? Should it be private? Can it be open? Are there product demos? The ground preparation, probably the most overlooked. Can't build anything until you get that ready for electrical and internet and comfort. You're going to be standing on your feet for, 8 hours for the next 3 days. I think you think about the visitor preparation. What kind of experience do I want them to have? Can we greet them quickly? How quickly can we get them out of there so the next person can be greeted? And where am I going to take them in my booth space? Sometimes when you're in an island booth, it's nice because you got 2 or 3 stations and people need to be trained to move them around. And then there's the last question I always ask people, if I'm taking notes is, I really appreciate you making a few minutes for us today, Khalil. How would you like me to follow up? And then shut up.
Be quiet.
They'll tell you. And then follow through. Don't follow up. Follow through. Just like the gospel.
I heard something that maybe this is kind of a side thought here, maybe to wrap up, but I heard something today about how I'm going to blank on who it was from the CIA, but came up with this statement-based line of thinking. Rather than asking a question, if you want to get someone to talk, how you give them a statement
waterboarding?
instead.
Is that the
Yeah,
answer?
waterboarding, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
No, but
Impressive.
it was really interesting. So like if you had to figure out how much the employee at Whole Foods makes um, in their salary, but you can't ask any questions, go. Like, how do you actually do that? And he went through like, well, actually the best way is to not ask questions. It's to go up and say, hey, could you help me find the baby carrots? I'm not sure where they are. And as they're walking you down to where the carrots are, you say, I read this crazy article the other day that Whole Foods just gave a huge bonus to where all their employees are making $26 an hour or more. The worker's going to stop you and say, what? I make
Which store
14
is
an hour.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then they give you way more information than
Well, that's
but
clever.
just by giving them an incorrect statement. And then, you say like, if you have to figure out other information, you can give a statement of disbelief. Like for example, if I run into you, Chris, and I say, I want to hear about your vacation, rather than ask you, how was your vacation? I can say, man, Chris, you look so rested. That must have been the best vacation ever. And now all of a sudden you're like, well, yeah, it was amazing. Or you're like, honestly, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think those
Nothing.
are good openings for trade shows. Just made me think of that.
Yeah. Nothing like that campground in Hattiesburg, Mississippi during mosquito season. Boy, was that really a treat. So,
He is not a happy camper. No. All right.
well, hopefully
has
this
been fun,
discussion
Chris.
was enough where, again, I mean, we got a lot of listeners I know that are involved in the planning of their booth. And I think if anything, or if you're involved in the initial budget forecasting, hopefully we gave you some things to remember to think about. And again, you can always hit me up on LinkedIn, you too. And if there's a question or an inquiry, subscribe to us if some of this stuff is helpful, and you'll get more stuff like this. But we're interested in making sure that people are successful when they make this kind of spend. So when done
Absolutely.
right, when it's done correctly, right, Khalil? Still the smartest way to market services.
I love it. No, great for people that are thinking about exhibiting, but also helpful for the exhibitors out there that are trying to position themselves and sell their services. Really valuable framework of talking to them at a branch office rather than a booth. So
Yeah.
thanks again, Chris.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate the conversation as always. See you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Experience Builders podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content. Visit our website at crewxp.com to learn more about us. See you in the next one.